A new day rises, new generations come, decades pass. The town of Sleepy Hollow is revived, having been revamped after being abandoned years later because of the disappearances of random townfolk. Stories of seeing a headless horseman are documented, of being seen way back before the town was even built. People believe that this demon haunts the night, taking away any unfortunate soul. The town is a safety hazard. However, this was ignored before and after the reconstruction of the lost town. The people taken away were never to be seen again, but people say they can still see them, but instead overtaken by a demon, only getting stronger each time a person disappears, waiting for the perfect time to cause chaos. Cole Johnson was a new resident in the town of Sleepy Hollow. In the course of a few weeks, he wasn't seen again. The police of Sleepy Hollow made the story that he left town. In reality, something darker happened to Cole, and I'm here to tell that story. If you are wondering, Cole was found, but my friend, you have to understand that the cops lied. On April 11th of 2005, Cole moved into town with me since he wanted to report on the reconstruction of the fallen town. And now that he was here, I helped him with the research that he needed. In my honest opinion, he went too far, but the truth of this town is needed to go public, and I will explain exactly what happened. Okay, sorry. You think this book of imagination will explain anything about this town? Which one sounds more interesting? A quote-unquote headless horseman, or a woman who says a killer watched her in her own house? This does not help me at all, Jonathan, Cole told me as I continued looking in the library. To be honest, I gave him the book to look at the history, not the headless horseman. It wasn't to get him angry, however, he changed his opinion when we went to the public records of the library. There were multiple records of disappearances of people in the town. Newspapers that dated back decades ago explained the figure being a headless horseman. However, the town was abandoned in 1990. The last report of the horseman was in 1890. Then, there were multiple reports months later that instead of disappearing people, they were dying to a figure with a distorted head. You know, now I think that we should read that book, just to see what the story is, Cole announced to me. Look, maybe there is something in that book that says something, even if it's a book of imagination, I told him. As we read the book, we wondered if we drank something, because the book was exactly what Cole said: imagination. The headless horseman was a Hessian warrior that got his head blown off by a cannonball, and he apparently made someone named Ichabod disappear. We thought that it was imagination, but then, 1 week later, a man disappeared, and that's when Cole got addicted. He kept talking every day something about the horseman, saying that he's real. One day I came to his home and saw boxes of records and the whiteboard with newspaper clippings and more records. I didn't confront him, which I wish I did, since he called me one night telling me to call the police and tell them his address. Up till this point, I know that Cole wanted to write that story, but the problem was that he was digging too deep, and that really concerned me. I called the police, and I called Cole back. He answered, but I heard breathing only. The police arrived at the house, and I started to drive to Cole's home. As I drove, I soon noticed that at every turn I saw a man. His head having a huge dent and wearing dirty and ripped up clothes. At the next turn I stopped since he matched the dented head described in a report of the figure after the headless horseman. I asked him his name, which he responded with Ichabod. I wanted to bring him to the police, but then it hit me. He should be dead. It's been years, maybe a century. I questioned how he was able to move to the side of the road in seconds. He wasn't alive. He was a demon. I drove as fast as I could to get back home and lock the door. I then heard walking around my house and running around my house. I heard someone breathing next to me, which made me nervous and scared. I was going insane looking at every corner in the house, when then I saw him in the kitchen. I quickly ran out of the house instead of even staying in my own home, where I was supposed to feel protected. I noticed that the car key was still in the house. Instead of going back, I started to run down the road yelling for help. My heart was beating uncontrollably, and then a car stopped, and I got in. The man in the car asked me what happened, and instead of responding, I told him to drive to the police station. I looked around the car and outside the car, and the coast was clear. We went over the famous Headless Horseman Bridge, and that's when I saw Ichabod on the bridge with his dented head, with a horseman laughing. His face was marked up, and he didn't even have eyes. I could see part of his skull, maybe even his brain. I screamed in the car, closing my eyes, hoping it was a dream. I looked in the car, and instead of the man that was driving me to the police station, it was Ichabod. In reality, the man was driving the car over the bridge, and I hit him with my fist repeatedly, thinking I was killing Ichabod. But instead I knocked out the man, and he crashed into the police station. I woke up in a hospital bed. A nurse was treating me and was surprised to see me awake. She told me I should even be alive. I touched my head and noticed that I had a dent on the front of my head. I looked around as I remembered why I am even here. I asked her how long was I out. 5 weeks. In that time, I told her to bring me newspapers or tell me about what happened that godforsaken day. Cole was never found, and instead the police uncovered that he went to a cult ritual. The people part of the cult were insane, talking about being revived by demons. The police found no evidence to arrest him, and Cole was never found. 3 days later, I was allowed to leave, and I went back home. I didn't want to go into my home, but I did, taking my stuff and looking at the kitchen. I walked into the kitchen and saw a jack-o'-lantern laying there on the dining table. I immediately took the pumpkin and threw it out of the house. It exploded with red liquid coming out. I now know what it was. It was blood. I got in my car and drove away, running away from the life I started with Cole. I presumed he was dead. A month passed and they found Cole in the woods, without a head and instead a pumpkin. Everything he and I uncovered was brought to the police by me. They told me it was ludicrous. It wasn't real. I yelled at every policeman in that station with anger, and I went outside. I cried about what happened. My best friend is dead, and the life I wanted is now destroyed. I am still finding evidence, and the police don't believe me. Whoever Ichabod is, it still concerns me that if he was Ichabod, or his spirit, then the town was reconstructed on a curse. I still believe it's a demon, because I now left for California and saw the same man outside my window looking at me with a pumpkin. I ran downstairs to confront him, but he was gone and left a jack-o'-lantern on my porch. You have to understand that they are coming after me. Please do something to help my situation. This is the exact story of what happened, and I hope to God that they will know the truth. I trust you, and I hope you can win this case for me and Cole. I trust you. Please find the truth. I am not crazy. I'm a man looking to tell the truth, and how the police and how that city or town is cursed. From Jonathan Maxis.